Well, hey, everybody, and happy Saturday. I am sports mental health empowerment coach and couple marriage and family therapist, Dr. Lauren Pitts. Y'all know who that guy is.
Morning, everybody. Morning, everybody. This is Ronnie Ransome, resident in counseling, retired college athlete. How's everybody doing this morning? It's a beautiful Saturday outside. It's a beautiful 60 degrees outside this Saturday morning. No clouds in the sky.
Football weather.
Amazing football weather. Amazing.
Yes.
How are you, Dr. Pitts? How are you doing today?
I have shaken therapist syndrome.
Oh, I ain't never heard of that one. What talking about shaking therapist?
I just made it up.
You're gonna have to send it off to the DSM board for the DSM-6 when that come out.
Put shaken therapist syndrome in the DSM. What the heck is that? That's when clients get on a therapist's nerves so bad that they feel like they've been shook.
You get the shakes a little bit.
Man, look, I kid you not, Ronnie. Every day this week, I was like, "Yo, is the moon full? What is going on right now?"
It be like that sometimes, man.
Craziness. I'm like, I need y'all to chill, man.
There's no more. Mercury is no longer in retrograde for the rest of the year, so your clients cannot blame it on that. So we can eliminate that issue.
And you know what's so funny? As clinicians, folks, one of the things we teach people is you can't be blaming and shaming and the whole 9 yards. But you know what, Ronnie, I'm gonna blame the devil. The devil busy. The devil.
He don't believe in taking a day off.
Right. He don't never take no day. He don't take holidays. He don't take breaks. He don't take nothing.
He probably got crazy PTO too.
It's true. Look, he got so much PTO. He trying to vacation to heaven. Nah, you can't come here, bro. You were banned for life.
Like you don't want to take a break. You don't want at least an hour.
Like you get up off of me. Man, listen, when I say he was riding my clients' backs this week like a baby baboon, I'm just
Lord.
Oh, y'all can't see what this is. It's crazy.
It'd be like that, though.
It really is. Like that. Look, folks, welcome back. This is House Talk PreGame. Oh boy, we got some fire for you today. I'm just gonna put it out there. I said I've got some things that I'm gonna wait until our 100th episode to share. But one of the things that I've come to realize about this, which is really interesting, and you hear a lot of A-listers talk about it, is that when the world perceives you as nobody, it is kind of difficult to connect with people sometimes, right? Everybody, so many people, I won't say everybody, so many people want to be paid, and we get that, we get it. It's all good in the neighborhood. But you know what? It was many years ago, Ronnie, my speech coach taught me that, Lauren, sometimes you have to speak for free, and that will open the door for you to speak for fee. And that blessed me. That was such a humbling and a gracious encouragement to me, because what I came to realize is that, we need to eat just like everybody else. We do.
Right.
But at the end of the day, these messages that we convey week in and week out are powerful, powerful messages. They're powerful messages. And as we know from some of the folks that we have met with that are coming on the show throughout the season, and how thankful and grateful we are for that, these are conversations that are not being held. And the little bit of chatter that is going on in these types of conversations, they're not being held the way Ronnie Ransome and Dr. Pitts have them. So, it's kind of disheartening, Ronnie. It's kind of disheartening when you attempt to connect with people who have arrived or on their way to arriving, so to speak, that don't even give you the common courtesy. Yeah, I'm calling people out right now. I'm not going to say no names, but they don't even give you the common courtesy of thank you, but no thank you. Or if you could pay me for my appearance, then I might consider it, or what have you. But, and you know what? I am so thankful and grateful. And I said this before on the show. I didn't have a perfect life. And, folks know, and I've been very transparent about some of the things that I've been through and what have you. But Ronnie, I was raised right. And there's such a thing as decency. There's such a thing as common courtesy and respect. And I'm not suggesting for a moment that anybody owes me, you, or us anything. But my brain says, well, darn, if somebody thinks highly enough of me, of you, to say, hey, Dr. Pitts, Ronnie, I know you guys are busy because I hear you talking about your caseloads on the show, what have you. Can I get a moment of your time? Well, I mean, we do that. There are people that have reached out to us wanting to come on the show, and we have moved our clinical schedules around to accommodate meeting with people. You know why, folks? Because it's the right darn thing to do. It's called common humanity. It's called common courtesy. It's called decency. It's called respect. And it clinically, personally, and professionally, it bothers me that folks, and we go through it, and I'm just going to put it out there. I think that this is something that exists across all ethnic groups, but maybe because we're among Black and brown persons, we feel it, because we know one of the things that's been stated in our communities is crabs in a basket. And folk think that you always looking for a hand out, when in actuality, if we were all more diligent about extending a hand up, we could all rise higher every day. But you know what? So oftentimes what people do, I got mine, they need to figure out how to get theirs. Okay, you're right. You're right. We're going to figure it out, and we're going to continue to do what we do with greatness and excellence every single solitary show, because what we do know to be true, based on the people that have been connecting with us, based on the people that do email us, that do message us, people are paying attention.
Right.
And it's only a matter of time.
And I think, and we've had this conversation personally before, and I observe and listen to a lot of things that people say, outside of, just, whether it's the real world, social media, whatever the case may be. And, when it concerns podcasts and stuff like that, one of the things I always see people say is like, everybody and their mama got a podcast, everybody thinks they should have a podcast and whatnot. And, and I think the reason that, especially within the last year or so, people gravitate towards podcasts is because of a select few. There's a select few podcasts out there that have, national attention, they grab people's attention. And, those are heavily monetized, sponsored and stuff like that as well. For good reason. Most of those shows are definitely very well quality podcasts and whatnot. And, one of the things that, me and you had talked about, especially, during this past off season, was that, I think the one thing for us that has never really, penetrated our mind is this need to be, compensated for doing this. For me, I think the greatest way that we've been compensated so far by doing this is just by the connections we've made with the people who come on the show.
Relationships.
We've had some really great guests and some really powerful conversations on this show, with the guests we've had, and just the connections. Like a lot of the guests we've had, we still keep in contact with outside of the show. And some of them have only been on the show once, and, still keep in contact with them. So I think for me right there, just the connections and networking and stuff like that, this podcast has provided us, and then also being able to expose a lot of these people to a broader audience, to let them know, let people know, like, hey, there are people out there, whether they're close to you or somewhere in your vicinity that, they are talking about these things, they're doing these things, and these are some of the projects that you might not know that they're the ones in charge of it, but hey, this is what they're doing, this is what they got going on, and hey, we co-sign them, so I think, yes, money, money is a necessity, money is good and everything, but there's just some things you can't put a price on, networking
and doing this, whether isn't that what Oprah says though, Ronnie? When she had her show, she used to always say, find what it is you really love to do it with excellence, whether you're getting paid or not, the money always comes. And I've said that about my private practice. I've said that about HT. Whether we ever are sponsored, that would be nice. But even if we're not, these conversations are still necessary. And somebody said something powerful that just blessed me. And it reminded me of something my grandmama and my grandpapa used to always say, right? Ronnie, if we just positively impact one person's life for the better based on these conversations, then we've done our job. But
Right.
we know what we know that we know that we know based on the feedback that we do receive is that we're impacting more than that. And a life is far greater than any dollar amount that anybody could ever pay us. Exactly. And that's the thing. It's like, yo, if we've heightened a parent's awareness about things that their child may be going through as a scholar athlete that they didn't realize because they just hadn't thought about what going on beyond the win, or if, you know, when we talk about recruiting, when it gets closer to National Signing Day and all that, all the different things that we've talked about, like today, you know, tell them what we're talking about today, because today's like, sheesh, I wish our guests had been able to come through for us and make it, but we're going to rock out. We're going to make it do what it do without a guest for today's show, because it's just so powerful, so powerful. Tell them what we do.
Yeah, and I think we definitely should, you know, especially for this topic, I think we should definitely find a guest for maybe to revisit this topic later on in the season, because I think it's, you know, really important. You know, we're talking about pride in sports, you know, the LGBTQIA plus community and their athletic experience. You know, we know for millions of Americans, sports embodies our ideals of equality, fairness, perseverance, discipline, integrity. We always say that, you know, especially in team sports are really a microcosm of the society that we live in on a day-to-day basis, especially in American sports. We see how much, you know, our sports resembles, you know, our societies and some of the, you know, daily things we have going on, you know. But when we talk about the LGBTQIA plus community, you know, on the field, court, or track, in the ring, on the ice, in the stands, you know, we transcend our differences in the spirit of honest competition and perseverance. But not in too many places, sports are always a safe or affirming space, especially for, you know, the LGBTQ plus community. So we're going to be talking about, you know, what you know, especially just in the last 10 years, how the perception of having LGBTQIA plus community athletes on teams and stuff like that, and especially some of the other things going on in the Deep South, like, you know, the transgender athletes and things like that, and how that has impacted a lot of high school communities and college communities and stuff like that. So we're going to kind of flesh through that. Now, I am no expert in the LGBTQIA plus community. And we'll talk about more of that in the show and whatnot. But, you know, we definitely want to, you know, spread some awareness and definitely put a feel out there for anybody who might be a current athlete, whether student, professional athlete, who is a part of the LGBTQIA plus community, to, you know, really reach out, and so they can share their testimony and really not only, you know, share their testimony and experiences with, you know, our community, but also giving us more game and insight on what, you know, what that's like on a day-to-day life, you know, whether you're an athlete or just being you, you know.
Parents of
exact
the
parents,
athlete,
you know,
like
teammates.
anybody and everybody that's impacted.
Exactly. And, you know, the one thing I will say, you know, before we dive into this topic, is one of the things that I've had to learn as an individual is, and I think, you know, society has definitely, you know, detrimented a lot of minds, is that for so long we've placed so much value and emphasis on your sexual orientation to encompass all of you. You know, and, you know, because who you sleep with matters more than who you are as a person. You know, who you decide to lay in bed with and love is far more important than who you are as a person and what you do as a person for the community and the world. So we're going to get on that in a few seconds and whatnot. So before we get into that, and before Dr. Pitts get into, was that your mental health tip of the week?
No, I have one. You want me to do it first?
Yeah, do that first, and then we'll kind of talk about a little college football a little bit for a second before we dive into our topic, because there was a lot of things going on last week in college football that I definitely want to flesh out for our HBCU community, because tempers were flaring last week at a couple games and whatnot. So go ahead and give us your mental health tip of the week, and then we'll dive on into that.
I'm going to do it more through the lens of awareness, because this is Domestic Violence Awareness Month too, as it is Breast Cancer Awareness. You see from our posts, we're tackling both for awareness. So just as a reminder, because we talk about this a lot on shows, domestic violence is a pattern of coercive behavior used by one person to gain power and control over another in an intimate or familial relationship. So a lot of these terms are used interchangeably. So just so you know, whether it's domestic violence or abuse or battery or intimate partner violence, IPV, family, spousal relationship or dating violence, all of those things sort of refer to the same thing. So because I want to approach this, Ronnie, from an awareness perspective, I want to ask some specific questions because I really want our audience to be thinking about their answers to these questions. Does your partner or partners threaten to, and this is specifically for LGBTQIA, right? Does your partner or partners threaten to out you to your family, friends, employer, faith leader, landlord, nursing home staff, etc.? Control or question your gender identity and or gender expression? Deny access to gender affirming clothing and devices such as binders and gaffs? Refuse to use your affirming pronouns or refuse your chosen name? Withhold hormones like testosterone and or estrogen? Tell you that you're not gay, lesbian, bi, trans, queer enough? Exploit vulnerabilities by hiding or denying access to your wheelchair or other assistive devices? Signs of abuse. It can be very difficult to acknowledge that you yourself or someone you're close to is experiencing relationship or family violence. Abusers go to great lengths to control their partners, their interactions in everyday life. So there's 4 types of abuse that I want to bring your awareness to. Physical abuse, hitting, kicking, or choking their partner without consent or permission, harming body parts related to identity, destroying property and their partner's personal items, harming or killing pets and or livestock. Sexual abuse, forcing or pressuring their partner to engage in sex acts, forcing their partner to watch or view pornographic movies or pictures, touching parts of their partner's body they don't like touched during transition, taking nude sexual photos or videos without consent. Emotional and psychological abuse, using bi, trans, homophobic slurs, threatening to out their partner, threatening to use identity or sexuality to impact custody of children, using bi, trans, homophobic bias in systems to their advantage, threatening to withdraw, hide, or destroy important paperwork relating to immigration status and or passports, ID cards, or healthcare cards. Financial abuse, withholding banking information, opening credit cards in their partner's name without permission, building up debt from credit, loans, and bills in their partner's name, not allowing their partner to establish their own credit history to keep them dependent. What we know to be true is that domestic violence is very, very high among the community. And because of that, heightened awareness is so important, and connecting with resources is so important. So for free and confidential help, please contact the National Domestic Violence Hotline at thehotline.org or 1-800-799-7233. You also have a Gender and Sexual Justice Caucus, so you can definitely look for local affiliation with the Gender and Sexual Justice Caucus in your geographic area. It's really important, folks, that we all are committed to justice and equality. You don't have to agree with a person's lifestyle to treat them as a human being. Having differences doesn't give you a license to abuse, neglect, or mistreat. We have to, as a nation, I believe, just like we need to address injustice and inequality against ethnic minorities, we have to end abuse in the LGBTQ plus community. We have to recognize that lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and all others within the LGBTQ spectrum experience domestic violence and abuse at a high rate. And to do nothing is just as bad as abusing, in my opinion. That's all I have, Ronnie.
Thank you for sharing that. And I think as we talk more about this topic and everything, I would say, I'm not old enough to really understand, the pride movement of the, the 60s, 70s, and 80s and stuff like that. However, even just as I've gotten older, definitely, when I was growing up, how people viewed, the LGBTQ community from when I was growing up is vastly different than how it is viewed today. And we'll talk about that in a second, but I appreciate you sharing that. And I think those are some very powerful words and things that need to be said, in support and ally of, of that community and everything. So before we get into that, I just wanted to kind of run down, some college football news and everything last week because, HBCU football is really heating up, especially at the FCS level.
Yeah, man.
For those who don't know what I'm talking about, so last week we had Jackson State travel to I want to say they're in Birmingham to play Alabama State for their homecoming. And so to kind of give a little backstory for everybody who saw the videos circulating last week of Coach Deion Sanders and Coach Brian Robinson, their little scuffle at midfield, not scuffle, but a little, disagreement at midfield. Coach Sanders was definitely a little, as he said, confused as to, Coach Brian's, haste towards him. So to kind of give a little backstory. So we all know that Alabama State had their homecoming last week. And they had Jackson State. So last year, Alabama State had beat Jackson State. It wasn't for Jackson State's homecoming, but Alabama State did beat them last year. So, they were feeling themselves and whatnot. And, Coach Prime and them, definitely took offense that, Alabama State had them as their homecoming. So, Coach Prime come out and say, well, I know why we're their homecoming this year. It's a money game. You ever seen them fill up their stands any other time? No, you haven't. So hey, we know what it is. How, basically Coach Prime was like, it's disrespectful and, the audacity of them to schedule us for their homecoming. But he's like, I peep game. I know what time it is. Obviously, Coach Robinson did not care for those comments. And so another video that was circulating around too is that apparently Coach Prime, even when he was an athlete, before every game, he walks the entirety of the field. Even if that means going on the opponent's side of the field and walking past them. So
but a lot of athletes do that. But go ahead. Go ahead.
To do that, I wouldn't necessarily walk around the sideline. I would just walk up and down the field, just one time, just to walk the field as, a little pregame ritual and whatnot. But
they show Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers and them do that all the time. People do that all the time.
Exactly.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So in the process of his walk, some of the Alabama State players were, vulgarly disrespectful. They were definitely, hey, look, the audacity of them players to be, cursing at.
Oh, his internet is.
Them to be yelling at him like that and cursing at him. Hey, I'm pretty sure he went and told his players. So to make a long story short, it was a really good game. Alabama State did what they could, but Jackson State ended up winning. Coach Prime, Coach Robinson go to midfield. They thought they was going to dap up. Coach Brian gave him the, I'm good, fam. We just keep it at a handshake. So after the game, they asked Coach Robinson, like, what was that all about and whatnot? So he was like, you know what? They were real disrespectful. He's walking on our sidelines before the game and whatnot, trying to get our players all riled up. I don't play that. Like, he not swag. I'm swag. He not swag, referencing the conference and everything. And so, Coach Prime definitely heard that and whatnot. And, he was like, hey, look, I stand by what I said. Their players were disrespectful. I do that every game. It's all good. He was like, we'll be here next year. So we'll put them on the schedule for homecoming next year. And they want to come down there and do something. What's up? So
wow.
it was a very entertaining scuffle and whatnot. There have been a swirl of rumors. I mean, a swirl of rumors.
You're glitching. You keep freezing up. You're back.
Oh, this Xfinity. You want to be part of the House Talk family? Go ahead, sponsor us and sponsor me some better internet service than what y'all sponsor me here in Ettrick, Virginia, because it ain't working. But we love you as a sponsor though. I'll take it, but I need you to sponsor this internet a little bit better too. But
crazy.
Anyways, so yeah, so it was a lot of excitement because I like to see these these rivalries and these it was really exciting. So it's really good to see. But there have been a lot of rumors saying that Coach Prime is starting to be recruited by Auburn University. I think another school. It's two schools. They say it was Auburn and another school that are apparently, in behind the scenes trying to see,
trying to romance him.
Mm-hmm. And I said this 2 years ago when he first got hired as Jackson State. And I was like, I hope that he's there long enough to really, really put a system in place that will not only benefit Jackson State, will benefit all HBCUs.
Yeah.
I know they just said that Jackson State just got approved. I think they just are discussing to get the funding to build a brand new stadium for Jackson State.
Nice.
I think that was one of the contingencies that Coach Prime had said, like, hey, y'all want to keep me here. I need y'all to make an investment. So apparently they are going to work on getting a brand new stadium built in Jackson. Mm-hmm. I hope they get some, the water system fixed in Jackson as well before they build that stadium. But that's neither here nor there. That, that ain't none of my business. But, I think they should get the water fixed before they build a brand new stadium. Mm-hmm. But, hey, so there's a lot of excitement heating up in the HBCU world. The season's getting ready to come to a close. So we're going to touch back on that at the end of the show. Okay. Let's go on and get into this topic real quick. So, like we're talking about, oh, you had something?
No. I was saying, let's get it done.
Oh, so yeah. So, we're talking about the LGBTQIA plus community in sports, for those who are just logging in or just tuning in and whatnot. So yeah, I think this is a very important topic, and a topic that we definitely will touch on later in the season when we can have the appropriate guests to, be a representation of the LGBTQIA plus community. Yeah. So I'll be honest with everybody, and I don't mind being honest because, in life we have to learn and whatnot. Mm-hmm. Obviously in our society, especially I'm a 90s baby. So, for all my, late 1900s babies, will understand this. When I was growing up, being part of the LGBTQIA plus community was not something to be necessarily vocally and overtly proud of. It was a lot of like hush hush and things like that. And I was in middle school the first time I ever had my like first true encounter with somebody who was a part of the LGBT community. And it was, I'm not gonna say his name or anything, even though he probably doesn't listen to this at all. But if he did, that would be dope, but it probably doesn't. But, just to save his identity and everything, it was a young gentleman that we had in middle school. And he was like the first person that all of us as a collective was like, he gay. Like, yeah, he definitely gay. Like, just the way, just certain questions he would ask, just certain things he would say. You were just like, that ain't normal. That ain't normal to ask, another dude that type of question. Mm-hmm. But he was dating girls at the time, which was, for us was kind of like, you acting real suspicious to be, like, kid you not, he could get any girl he wanted. Like, legit, he could sing. He, was handsome for a dude and whatnot, could get any girl he wanted. Like, that wasn't even a question. Mm-hmm. And by the time we were in high school, but I never forget it, our senior year in high school, the first day of school, Dr. Pitts, I never forget it. Dude pulled up to school with a spaghetti strap tank top on and a jean skirt that was like halfway between his, hips and knees. Like, and we all just looked like, bruh, no, you didn't. Like, word? Changed it, like, had a whole new name. Now, he legally didn't have a whole brand new name, but you couldn't call him his old name no more. And I'll never forget, the principal, first day of school, sent his ass home.
Wow.
Send him home and said, bro, you got to change this outfit. Like, you got to come back in boy clothes. Like, legit.
That would be a lawsuit now.
What? Hey,
that would be a lawsuit now. And
this was only 10 years ago, too. This was 12 years ago. This was 2010. That's not that long ago. Yeah. Like,
should have been a lawsuit then.
Honestly, probably you definitely had a stronger chance now than you did back then. Yeah. But that was kind of like my first encounter with it. But for so long, it was like, oh, if you're gay or if you're lesbian, you're sick in the head, something's wrong with you. Like, why would you like the same sex and stuff like that? Like, I can't even imagine I'm not calling you old, Dr. Pitts. You are a veteran. You're aging like wine. You are seasoned. You are seasoned, not old.
It's called wisdom, Ronnie. It's called wisdom.
You are
it's,
wise.
It's 55 years of sheer wisdom.
You are 55 years.
Not yet, in 2 weeks.
Young, 55 years young. But I couldn't imagine what it was like, dealing with, that population back then and when you were growing up, because it seemed like it was, definitely, don't.
I want to touch on it. I do.
Yeah.
I want to touch on it because there are definitely family members and friends, members of the community that there was suspicion that that they were amongst the LGBT community. But like you said, it wasn't talked about. It wasn't accepted. It just was not, back in the day, growing up in Salem, New Jersey, Salem in a lot of ways was really considered a Christian community. And we, that's a whole nother show where this
not a witch-like community with the whole Salem witch trials and everything.
Yeah, no, that's Massachusetts, you nut. But it just wasn't accepted. It wasn't talked about, but people knew, right? And I think that a part of the issue is rearing, right? And because I said it, hate is taught,
right?
And I really truly believe, and it's one of those things that's always made me giggle, right? When people are homophobic, to me, it's like, yo, you tripping, like you've made the assumption that they would want you. It's like, you are homophobic, and then like you ain't even their type. Like, what are you tripping off of? And it's so crazy to me that you have this fear of someone because they're different than you, as if to suggest that somehow difference is contagious or, a disease or something. And it's just disgusting to me. It's disgusting that people treat other human beings with such ill intent. It's totally contrary to how I was raised. It's totally contrary to how I think and feel and behave and navigate life, that you don't have a right to treat someone like less than a human being because you disagree with who they are and how they choose to live their life. And growing up in a Christian home, growing up in a Christian community, one of the things that always irked me to the core of my soul is how people would judge and criticize and condemn members of the community in such an egregious way, and then have the audacity to spew scripture simultaneously. And it's like, the word of God that I read says, therefore, there is now no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus. The word of God that I read says that we must walk in love toward everybody. So how do you hide behind the Bible as justification to treat another human being like they're less than human? It's disgusting to me. I tell folks, I don't have no heaven or hell to put nobody in. What you choose to do and how you choose to live your life and how you identify, that's between you and your maker. That don't have nothing to do with me. I'm going to love you for whoever you are. And I'm going to treat you with decency and respect because you're a human being. And that is what I was taught to do. That is how I was raised, and what I believe is right. It's called humanity, folks. It's called humanity. I don't hear a lot. I mean, we hear in the news, Ronnie, about, especially with the transgender community and athletes and the argument and the debate. We've talked about that before. We really need to do a show dedicated solely to that, but I don't want to do that show without actually having members of the transgender community on the show. That's why we haven't touched it yet. But when I think about those members of my home community that we knew that they were gay growing up, and many of them were athletes, it was just one of those things that just wasn't talked about.
Right.
It just wasn't talked about. And to my knowledge, and Salem is a close-knit community. To my knowledge, nobody was ever mistreated because they were gay. Now, they may have been, and it just didn't come out. And I just didn't hear about it. But to my knowledge, it didn't. Now, the other part of that is the language, right? Because that's a problem. It's like the language that's used, the inappropriate jokes, the stuff now that'll get you in trouble.
Right.
But stuff now that's considered, you mess around, catch an EEOC case at work, and school districts mess around, catch a lawsuit. You can't use offensive language.
I mean, the language we used to use when I was growing up, like the F word. I'm not gonna say it because
just all inappropriate, just horrible language that's contradictory to what we know now is diversity and inclusion and gender affirming language. It just wasn't there back in the day. It's ignorance. It was ignorance. That's all it was.
I think one of the other bigger issues also is that, I think because there has, finally been this societal shift of, more acceptance and more, understanding. But, so when I was in college, we actually had a teammate who transferred in from JMU, and he played running back. And he was on our 2013 team that should have won the championship, but we didn't get a chance to play the game. And I'll never forget it, so we had our offensive line coach come down from JMU, and he was our offensive line coach at State. And that entire spring ball, I never forget him saying, like, look, as long as y'all learn the concepts and the fundamentals of these blocking schemes, I got a running back coming down here who's gonna make y'all look like rock stars. Wow. In my mind, I'm like, oh, all right, bet. So I never forget it. Summer camp opens up. We got the quarterback and the running back from JMU to come down, play for Virginia State. So in our minds, we're thinking like, oh, all right, bet, this about to be dope. So the running back comes in for the first meeting and everything. It was our first time seeing him and whatnot. Instantly, I hate to say this, but, instantly, we can call which one we judge. We looked at him and was like, okay, cool. And so we got out in practice, and I'll never forget it. One of the seniors had asked the quarterback, like, hey, yo, what's up with such and such? Is he and the quarterback was like, yeah, he a little different, Red Fox used to do he a little, and so we were like, all right, cool. Dr. Pitts, I'll never forget it. The way he used to get in his running back stance was the funniest thing in the world, because like he literally would like almost like poke his ass out like when he would get in the stance, and you were just like, yeah, all right, he clearly like at this point like what he liked. Cool. Dr. Pitts, this dude could run the ball. Like
phenomenal athlete.
In one season, he broke our touchdown record and our season rushing yards record in one season coming to state. Shattered that joint. Like, yeah. In one game, he had 5 touchdowns by himself. Like, dude was a athlete. 6'1", 225, could run a legit 4.40. Had break. I mean, just a phenomenal athlete. He liked dudes.
And that's the thing.
And the one thing about it was nobody in the locker room at any point during the entire season never brought it up, never ostracized him for it, never, isolated from him. Like, his locker was in the middle of the locker room like everybody else's was,
Yeah.
He got dressed with us, like, I can't remember if he showered or anything, but we all knew what he was. But in no way, shape, or form did any of us at any point joke on him about it, treat him differently, talk to him differently. Like, nobody, it's not like nobody wouldn't dap him up or, like, when I tell you, yeah, he was who he was by his sexual orientation, but as a part of the football team, he was one of us. We didn't give a damn who he decided to sleep with. Like, you come out here on this field and you do this, hey, look, bro, you do what you want to do off the field. But if you're doing this on the field, hey.
That's the thing, Ronnie. It's like people. My grandmom used to say that folks make mountain out of molehills. It's like, folks, we live in a judgmental and critical society. We live in a society that there's so many people that behave as if a spotlight was shined on their life, if a TV camera entered their home and projected what was seen up onto a billboard on the major interstates around the country, that folks wouldn't be mortified about that happening. And I think that's the disgrace of it, right? Is that I don't have a right. I have so much of my own stuff that I'm working on and ironing out in my efforts to try to be a better me, that I don't have a right to judge, criticize, condemn, or whatever another person. Yeah, there's definitely things that we can point out that, yeah, don't know if I agree with that, whatever it is. But to judge, criticize, condemn another human being for their choices, for them being who they are, for them living the way they choose to live their life, it's disheartening. It's disheartening. Go ahead.
I do have, it just popped in my head, and I hope this is an appropriate enough platform to ask this question. And I ask it in a.
You're asking me a question?
Yeah, I'm asking you a question, and I'm not asking if you don't want to answer it, you don't have to, because it's a complex question.
Okay.
So, and I'm glad we're having this conversation, and I definitely want to have this with somebody, a part of the community. But one of the things that I've observed and that's been talked about heavily, especially amongst the Black community, is the rise in the emasculation of the Black man. And the reason I wanted to ask you this question and kind of, I guess, get your viewpoints on it, because I don't know if you've heard this conversation before or whatnot, but basically, in a nutshell, that systematically, through whether it's systemic racism or just systemic oppression, that, the powers that be, whether it's through food, whether it's through social media, whether it's through programming, are basically, trying to emasculate, specifically the Black man, and, further, basically oppress them to a point where, we don't have, in other words, it's almost a fancy way of saying, like, they're trying to do like population control through emasculating Black men and reducing the people of color's population in a way that other races can, catch up in a sense, and it's a complex situation and it's a complex topic because it's to each his own. And we've talked about how, like, what you identify as with your sexual orientation is specific to you, because, at the end of the day, who you choose to love, sleep with, whatever the case may be, that shouldn't be the end all be all determination of you as a person. However, we also know that from cultural perspectives and also just a human race perspective that, you can't, it's kind of hard to sit there and say, everybody wants to support same sex in a sense, because, like, in a sense, you support same sex. Well, that kind of, also inhibits, repopulation, reproduction and stuff like that, because, same sexes can't just now they have technology nowadays that they make that possible. And I ain't gonna get into all that because I just don't know enough about it. But this is a conversation that is going heavily in the Black community of this argument of, the emasculation of the Black man the emasculation of the Black woman, almost like kind of like, in a sense, role reversals if you do follow that type of thing. So I just kind of wanted to get maybe your viewpoint on that, or if that's maybe a discussion you've had with people in the community or just in the Black community as a whole of, this continued systemic oppression of the Black family, specifically the Black man and Black woman, almost forcing them to reverse roles. And I know I'm putting you on the spot. I don't want to put you on the spot.
No, you're fine. I'm trying to. Okay, so when you and I'm going to try to explain my perspective.
You get where I'm coming from, though, right?
I think so, and connecting it to our topic today. So here's the thing. I think I mentioned on a previous show, it may have been a couple of years ago now, that we had a discussion in my historical and socioculture class when I was in grad school about whether or not individuals are born.
They actually released a study about that in 2020.
Yeah, or are born into the LGBT community, whether or not being a member of the community is a choice. And there was just huge, intense debate in my class in grad school. And the majority of the class said that they believe that individuals are born as members of the community. There were 3 of us, if my memory serves me correctly, that said that we didn't know. And then there was 1 person who said that they thought it was a choice. And those of us that said that we didn't know came under fire because they thought that we were copping out and just choosing not to take a stance. And of course, my thing is, you know what? I back down from nothing. So you could think what you want. If I felt like I was clear on one way or the other, I don't have a problem speaking my mind. Anybody that knows me knows that, so screw you. Right. But I bring that up to connect the dots to what you said. So here's the thing. Do I think that there's an emasculation of the Black man? I do. Do I think that Black women are oppressed? I do. Do I think that it's forcing a role reversal? I think that speaks to the debate that we've touched on very, very briefly in previous shows around this conversation about whether or not the Willie Lynch letter was real or a hoax, as the research done at Spelman or Morehouse or whoever it was that did it suggest. I honestly and truthfully, personally, professionally, clinically, I don't know if someone is born. I do know enough about the little bit of scientific information about chromosomes and how if your chromosomes, that impacts how you connect with your gender identity. And because that determines your anatomical makeup and what genitalia you're born with. But that doesn't address the fact that you do hear members of the community say, yes, I have male anatomy, but I feel like a female inside. Or yes, I have female anatomy, but I feel like
gender dysphoria. That's the definition of gender dysphoria, right? Yeah.
But I feel like, I was born one way, but I feel like the opposite sex inside. And then of course you have non-binary who are just like, you know what, I ain't associated with either. Forget y'all. I'm just gonna be whatever. And that's fine. I say all that to say, Ronnie, that it doesn't matter to me whether or not the Lynch letter was a hoax. There are contents within that letter that are present in our communities today. So whether it was a hoax or not, there are elements of the letter that we see existing in the behavior of Black and brown persons in communities all over this country. There is role reversal. I don't know if the role reversal is intentional or if it's just happening because there's so many of our men in car. I don't know. So my authentic answer is, I don't know, but I do agree that it is going on.
Right.
The root of why it's going on, I believe there are more of us that need to do more scholarly research to sort of try and tease it out further and get to the essence of it. I don't know. What I do know is this. And you described it beautifully. How a person identifies, who they choose to love, who they choose to have an intimate relationship with, how they choose to live their life has absolutely, in my opinion, and I'm entitled to it, has absolutely positively no bearing on how they engage in athletic involvement.
Oh yeah.
And we've talked about this previously, you have players that have come out in the various leagues that ended up not having successful professional careers because it wasn't well received. But now you have players that have come out and they are, well, timing is everything. Timing is everything. And how, in my opinion, how a person comes out, I believe, has the ability to impact how they're received. And wisdom says you have to gauge your audience. That's not just members of the LGBT community. That's anything, anybody, anywhere. I've shared before on the show, Ronnie, there were people who didn't know that I was a victim of domestic violence. There were people who didn't know that I was sexually assaulted because I didn't feel emotionally safe enough to share that information. The same thing applies to members of the LGBT community. There has to be an emotionally safe space for them to be authentically who they are, regardless of who disagrees with who they are or not. I can't help the fact that I'm Black, but guess what? There are people who don't like the fact that I'm Black. So what? Get over it. You disliking me because I'm Black doesn't change the fact that I'm Black. If I came out right now and said, you know what, Ronnie, I'm a member of the community, people all over the country would pay us out because they were like, oh my gosh, I didn't know. But guess what? It wouldn't change the fact I'm still me. You know what I'm saying? So, and I actually touched on that in my book. I touched on it because I had past people when I was growing up. There were people in my life that questioned whether or not I was gay. And I'm like, I'm not, but what if I was? But are you going to love me? Are you going to love me or like me any less if I was?
And I think to that point, I think, especially in concerns to, as we get ready to wrap up, one of the final things I want to say before I pass it over to you to wrap this up, before we get into our picks and everything, is that I want to say, first and foremost, shout out to the parents of the student athletes who are part of the LGBTQIS community, who have been receptive and understanding and welcoming of their child's, choices. Whether or not as a parent you feel like that child's choice is a phase, or they're misled or misunderstood, whatever the case may be. One thing I always tell parents to do is, like, first of all, be understanding of your child. Don't be so quick to judgment, or quick to be dismissive, or just disrespectful to their choices. At the end of the day, that is a little human that you are raising. And I think, and especially for guys, and I get it, us as guys, we have this pride thing where it's like, if we have a son, oh no, my son can't be gay. No, I can't raise no son that's gay. I've heard that a trillion times from heterosexual males, especially Black males. Like,
nah, I think it's a reflection on them. People gonna think, oh, if I have a child that's gay, they're gonna think I'm gay. Shut up.
Exactly. And I mean, hey, if that's how you feel, I would suggest you go, talk with your peer group, your support group, and maybe even a mental health professional about that. But I think the one thing parents fail to realize in that moment is that if your kid does come to you and expresses those, understand this, like, even as a teenager or whatever the case may be, even though a kid expresses something, they still don't have a full grasp and understanding of that topic. No matter how much they've heard and seen, they just don't have a full, complete understanding of it yet. However, you as the adult, you can provide that passageway in that gateway for them to get the proper information and resources and tools necessary to help them further understand what it is that they're feeling on the inside and they're trying to express and get out. You know, and if it is a phase, whether it's a phase or not, understand this, still support your child.
Yes.
Because understand, people don't do things for no reason. Kids don't do things for no reason. Kids don't explore or venture out to do things for no reason. So whether you agree with it or not, be there to support them and be understanding. And then the parents who do that, I applaud you. Whether or not you have personal biases or differences or just don't understand enough, the fact that you can still be understanding and patient enough for your child to let them figure it out on their own. Please continue to do that, because parents, if you don't, they're going to go find that information somewhere else. And that might not be the best place to find it at. So let them find it with you, and you all work together as a team, as a family, as a unit. So that's all I have to say about it. I definitely want to, get a guest on here to further talk about this and get more understanding and just insight as to what that's like. So Dr. Pitts, go ahead and wrap it up before we can get into these picks.
So we'll probably go over a couple of minutes today. Hopefully we'll be done by 5 after, but I wanted to close out, but I actually want to share the story real quick about professional wrestler Jake Atlas. He was arrested back in May for domestic violence, and he said that alcohol abuse played a key role in his arrest. But he also acknowledged, Ronnie, the mental health struggles that he battled with. And he said he apologized to his colleagues and his fans.
You said it was Chris Atlas?
No, Jake.
Jake Atlas. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So he said he was a WWE wrestler and AEW, and he said he finally admitted to his abuse of alcohol, which factored heavily into the altercation with his male partner that resulted in his arrest and being charged with a misdemeanor battery domestic violence on May 23rd of this year. He said that his real name is Kenny Marquez, by the way, and he is gay. And he said that he has had mental health struggles, and his mental health struggles, Ronnie, were a major factor in his stepping away from pro wrestling. And it also contributed to his alcohol abuse. He went on to say, I've accepted that my anxiety and depression led me to detrimentally self-medicate for the last 7 years. In addition, a lot of unresolved trauma resurfaced for me recently that was fundamental to the development of some extremely negative core beliefs, and I was inadequately able to manage. I wanted to highlight that because what we know to be true as clinicians, is that mental health challenges among the LGBT community are pervasive. They are extremely high, hence why the DSM ended gender dysphoria to the manual. There is significant challenges that the community faces because there is so much rejection, because there is so much hostility and abuse, neglect, and maltreatment that members of the community are subjected to that is compromising their mental health. So when you factor that in just because of how they identify and couple that with the pressures associated with athletic involvement, it's a perfect storm. It ends up being a recipe for disaster in many, many, many cases of these scholar and professional athletes that are members of the LGBTQ community. So we have to be sensitive to that. We have to raise our awareness about that. And we have to understand that these individuals are human beings with feelings and needs and wants that require just as much care and concern and compassion and empathy as someone who's not a member of the LGBT community. In some, they're human beings with feelings, and they need love and support just like someone who's heterosexual. And I need people to remember that they are human beings. They're human beings. They are human beings. They are human beings. They think and feel and breathe and bleed and hurt and cry like everybody else. They have just chosen to be authentically who they are. That's different than who we are. But they should not be abused, neglected, or mistreated because they have made the decision to be authentically who they are. That's it, Ronnie. Let's get these picks out the way so that we can get on with our day.
All right. So last week, real quick, Dr. Pitts, you were 6-4 last week. I was 7-3 last week. So we're neck and neck here. So, all right. So this week, the CIAA game of the week, because this right here is probably going to determine the northern representative for the CIAA. We have undefeated Virginia Union versus 4-2 Bowie State.
Ooh.
This is the game of the year for the conference right here. This is going to determine who's probably going to represent the North for the CIAA championship in a couple weeks.
I'm rolling the dice. I'm going with Bowie.
Ooh, Bowie with the upset. Okay.
I'm going with Bowie.
I hate both of these teams, respectfully. Man, I've been going back and forth because in my head, Virginia State still has an outside chance of getting to the championship game. They would just need Union to beat Bowie, and then they would need to beat Union, and Union would need to lose to one more team. But the chances of that happening,
what?
The chances of that happening are very slim. So I'm gonna go with Union. Union hasn't won a CIAA championship in over 20 years, so it's been a while. So we'll see.
Go with Bowie for the upset.
We got Virginia State versus Shawan today. Who you got? I think Shawan is 3-3. State is 4-2.
I'm going with State.
I bet I'm going with State too. State, y'all really disappointed me last week. I was talking so much trash, and then I just went missing because it was just terrible.
You went radio silent.
And look, it was 30 to nothing after the first quarter. I was like, yeah. I was glad I ain't paid that $30 to go out there though. Man, I'd have been pissed. I'd have been like, Coach, give me some pads because this is atrocious. Sheesh. But we got Fayetteville State versus Livingstone.
Are you gonna tell me the record?
I don't know the record. I think Fayetteville only has like 1 or 2 wins. Livingstone only has like 1 or 2 wins, if I'm not mistaken.
Fayetteville.
Yeah. I'm going to go with Fayetteville. All right. Now, this is the other game of the year in the SEAC conference. We have undefeated Benedict College versus 5-1 Alcorn State. This is going to be a good one. I'm
going to go with Alcorn.
Ooh, okay. Alcorn, okay. I'm going with Benedict. To keep their streak alive. All right, now to some FCS. Our last one for Division II, we have Lincoln versus Elizabeth City. Lincoln is going for their record 3rd win in a season, which hasn't been done in, I think maybe you were in elementary school.
They're that bad run. Oh my God.
Yes. Lincoln.
And who are they playing?
Elizabeth City. Elizabeth City, I think, has 1 win.
Oh gosh. So it's a toss.
It's a pick 'em. Yep. I'm going with Lincoln. I was
about to say I'm gonna go with Lincoln. I'm gonna give them the benefit of the doubt.
All right. So now for our FCS games, we got FAMU versus Grambling. I should already know who you're going with.
Stop playing. You already know.
Grambling let me down last week. They had the game. They had the game by 2 touchdowns, and I'm like, all right, bet. I come back and look, Alabama A&M came back and beat them in overtime. So I'm going FAMU. We got Jackson State versus Bethune.
Jackson State.
I'm going to say, I already know that one. We got, I apologize. I got it mixed up. It wasn't Alcorn State that Benedict explained. It's Albany State. Albany State is 5-1. I apologize. So you're going with Albany State.
Yeah.
It's Alcorn versus Southern. I apologize. Alcorn versus Southern. I think Alcorn is 4-2. Southern is like, I think they got like 1 or 2 wins. Alcorn. We got not Delta State. Delaware State versus Norfolk State. Norfolk State just got their first win of the season last week versus Morgan State.
I have to go with the Hornets. I gotta go with Del State.
Del State. All right. I'm going Little State, NSU. In our final game, we have Mississippi Valley versus Alabama State. Mississippi Valley only has, I think, 1 win. Alabama State has like 4 wins.
Alabama State.
I'm going with Alabama State too. All right. Well, that's all our picks. Y'all check back in with us next week to see how it's going. Look, I'm getting Dr. Piss in that Eagles jersey, y'all. So getting her in there.
Ronnie.
Look
Ronnie.
Ronnie. What happened?
You know that I am very humble. And all this trash you talking about my game tomorrow. If my Cowboys pull this upset, I'm calling you at midnight to wake you up on FaceTime. And you better answer.
It's all good. Okay? I know my phone. I don't have to worry about my phone ringing tomorrow. It's all good.
Bye. Bye, everybody.
Eagles fly.
See you.
Fly.
Bye.
Fly.
See ya. Happy Saturday, everybody. Enjoy your day. Peace.
Y'all have a great weekend.
Bye-bye.